What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Scott Kumler, and this is a podcast where we spotlight agents who are building real estate businesses in smart, intentional ways, not just getting lucky. And today's guest is someone you need to pay attention to if you're a newer agent, or if you ever thought about niching down. I'm sitting down with Timberly Fignolio. Timberly has only been in real estate for 3 years, and she's already earning six figures annually by doing two things extremely well. She niched her business into land and ranch around the Austin, Texas market, and she built deep, meaningful relationships with her sphere of influence. She's also an EXP Land and Ranch ambassador, helping lead and grow that community while still running a highly profitable relationship based business. In this episode, Timberly breaks down why she chose land and ranch as her niche, how she positions herself as the go-to expert in that space, how she leverages her sphere for consistent referrals, and how newer agents can fast-track their success by niching down instead of trying to serve everyone. If you're an agent who wants to grow fast, build authority, and create a business that actually fits your lifestyle, this episode is packed with real practical takeaways. And as always, if this conversation gets you thinking bigger and you want to explore what a partnership with me and my organization looks like, feel free to call or text me at 623-387-2688 or book a Zoom meeting on my calendar link below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more interviews with agents who are building smart, sustainable businesses. All right, let's jump in. Here's my interview with Timberly Fignolio. All right, guys, welcome to today's podcast. Super excited to have an amazing guest on today. I have Timberly Fignolio, based out of Austin, Texas. So, Timberly, thank you for coming on today's podcast.
Hey, thanks. I'm super excited to be here and chat and just like dive in with you.
Okay, awesome. Well, before I kind of get into some tactical stuff of what you're doing today, and I know you're extremely busy when it comes to real estate. You've obviously capped a couple of times, and even just talking to you before this podcast, you obviously have a lot of clients you're currently working with. But just kind of taking me back to the early stages of, what made you decide to get into real estate in the first place, and then what did you do before you got into real estate?
Yeah, I wish I had some great way of saying like how I got into real estate. I didn't know what I wanted to do in high school. I thought I wanted to be a vet. That didn't work out, and like I just didn't want to pursue it. I was actually in pet management before. So when I was 16, I got a job, and at 17, I was their manager, and I worked there for a few years. And so I'm really good with customer relationships and hiring staff and really like nurturing and showing them how to grow as an employee. And obviously, just like watching over, people's uh, animals is something that's it's like their babies. And so I have learned like at an extra high level how to care and how to communicate with those clients so that they trust. And so that's something that I did for a few years. And so I've always known that I've loved customer service and serving and just relationships. And my dad had kind of just blatantly told me like I should consider real estate. He's been kind of a jack of all trades, if you will, and he's been someone who's inspired me as far as entrepreneurship. And so I went for it. I was working 50 hours a week as a manager, and I went to ACC, which is our Austin Community College here, and was doing two classes a semester. So I ended up getting an associate's degree in real estate. And then finally, got into it, joined a local brokerage, about 160 agents. And I first niched into investments just because naturally that's what that brokerage was kind of all about. And that's kind of what got me started. And I would say niching down was something that has really benefited me from the get-go. And I've been able to learn a lot of things through that space as well.
Okay, awesome. And so correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you mentioned that you would start off as part-time in 2022 and then went full-time in 2023. Is that correct?
So I got licensed December of 2022, and I was like, okay, for the first few months, like I'm just gonna dip my toes in. Like I was still working. I had transitioned to part-time, so I wanted to see what it looked like. And I was really just doing open houses and leases at that point. And I was like, if I'm gonna go into this, like for me as a manager, 50 hours a week is like whether I was there, I was also at home answering, my staff's calls or clients and stuff like that. And so it's like I can't fully, commit if I don't go full time. And so April of 2023 is when I decided to go full time and leave my full time job.
Okay, awesome. And now I know, and I kind of want to lean on that a little bit here because I know a lot of times, especially when agents get into real estate, as a brand new real estate agent, they kind of have the same mentality where they start off, they dip their toes in it, they start off as like a part-time agent, and then they have to kind of make the decision of when they decide to go full-time. So when you went full-time in real estate, did you have any like savings, set up, or like did you have like kind of a cushion, or like what's your recommendation if someone's part-time that eventually wants to go full-time into real estate?
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough that I had my boyfriend. We just got married. We've been together for 10 years. We just got married last year. So I got into real estate when I was 23 years old. The year prior, we had just bought a house. I was 22, my husband was 25. Yes, I had some savings, but also it was something where like I had told him intentionally, like we needed a game plan, like if this was gonna work or not. And I just remember like month after month, I'm like, because I didn't close anything until like about when I went full time. I think I closed something 2 months in, like a really good check. But at that point, I was just like, I was so nervous. I was telling my husband, I was like, if you need me to go get a job, like, I'll go get a job. And he had the faith to believe in me and was like, no, you got this. Like, you're working so hard. I believe in you. And I'm like, yes, I believe in myself. It's going to happen. I push so hard. Fortunately, I, had him to lean on, but I would definitely say, like, if you're on your own, definitely having some savings because you don't know, when you're going to close that first deal. But I would say, definitely push yourself to try to close something, obviously, soon.
Yeah, and I love the fact you talk about the support of your boyfriend now husband, because I think especially when you try to go full time into real estate, there is like an investment of time up front until you eventually start closing your first transaction. You never know when that transaction is going to be, and so I think a lot of times having the support of like a loved one who pushes you and believes in you definitely goes a long way. Because obviously if you quit your job and then you have a spouse that's like always worried or always like putting a lot of pressure on you, it does become a little bit tougher. So. Now, obviously, you're crushing it today. I mean, you've only been in real estate for what is it, 3 years now, and you obviously have already capped twice, and you're obviously on a roll and doing an amazing job. So, I know talking to you, you get a lot of business from your sphere. So, kind of take me through that. Like, what does that strategy look like? Because I think that's one of the most underutilized strategies. I mean, a lot of times people are like, okay, what do I need to do to get business? But a lot of times you have so many contacts in your phone, anyways, that you already know. So, do you have like a specific strategy to get sphere business? Like, what's your kind of like basic concept in order to continue to get the spear like in referral business over time?
Yeah, I would say it started with agent referrals first, especially coming from like the investment brokerage. There's a lot of people who don't like to touch investments, right? Like they just want to take on family, friends, or like, new clientele, but not necessarily serve investors. And so that was something that, I really tapped into is like, doing investments. I specifically had one agent who she just like constantly didn't want to, and she fed me, those people to serve. And from there on out, like I was just seen as someone that she's like, oh, she does investments. I don't want to. I'm going to give that to her. And so it's really started that way with agents, and then moving more into residential because I opened my eye to residential. I'm like, I don't want to do investments forever, but it's obviously a cool tool because I've already, gained and learned how to serve that kind of clientele. It was really just being consistent on social media, I would say. I was just constantly pumping out content like every day, sometimes 3 posts a day, Instagram and Facebook, sometimes TikTok. But Instagram and Facebook is like where I'm mostly, at right now and where I have been. And I would go out in public and people would be like, I see you everywhere. Like people that I hadn't seen since, high school or people who were friends with my parents. Like I see it all over social media. Like you're literally killing it. And little did they know, sometimes it was like, great, like that's amazing. Yes, I'm so busy, but I was like only working like 2 deals at that time, so it's crazy. But also to lean into that, like I have lived in Georgetown my whole life, and my parents are from here, and we're like fourth, fifth generation Texans, and so like we know a lot of people here. But it can only go so far, knowing someone, right? Like had I not been showing up every day and being consistent on my socials, they probably would have reached out to somebody else. And that's something that just really benefited me. Constantly showing up, no matter the production, show people I'm in it every day, and then I'm serving others. And so, yeah, it's kind of just gone like that ever since. And now niching into land and ranch, again, another space that a lot of people aren't knowledgeable or don't want to handle. And so now the amount of land and ranch leads that I get from other agents, even across the world, it's insane. And now, obviously, being consistent with showing more land and ranch clients that I'm serving, I have more of my sphere that are also sending their friends and family over to me to serve.
Yeah, awesome. And I love the fact you talk about agent referrals. That's something that normally, even like on like our podcast and everything like that, most people don't talk about that as kind of like a a lead source. As other
Yeah.
agents referrals. And something you didn't mention, but I'll mention it, is we went obviously met each other in person at EXPCon. And something I'll say about you is that you're always active and always participating. So even like, for example, anytime we have a mastermind, you're always volunteering like your wins for the week, and talking and participating. At EXPCon, you're talking to other agents and leading specific activities and stuff like that. And so because of that, just be participating and being involved like you are, you obviously get a lot of agent referrals, which people don't think about how important and how powerful that can be, especially when
Yeah.
you ask around people in other parts of the country.
100%. And even like no referral, whether it comes from an agent or a past client or whatever, like they are so important, right? Like that is so much trust. And that's another agent's reputation on the line for, sending out a referral and putting so much trust into you to serve that person. And same thing with, a past referral. If they're sending a friend or family, like they're putting your trust in you. If you did a killer job for them, to do a killer job for that person. Yeah, I mean, trust goes a long way. Obviously, got to have a heart for it and do it right, and
Yep.
it'll serve you.
Awesome. Yeah. So I do want to talk about land and ranch because even like myself, like I'm like, even though I'm with EXP and I see a lot of people talk about land and ranch and stuff like that, can you kind of explain a little more what land and ranch is, and then how did you fall into, being a land and ranch ambassador with EXP?
Yeah. Whew. This is just kind of coming into like, transitioning, my niche at that point, to be honest. I've always grown up hunting and, on land, and my grandpa had acreage that we'd go out there and ride four-wheelers and get in the creek and do all the things. And so it's always been something that's been near and dear to my heart, but it wasn't something that at that time, I didn't know in real estate that I could do it until I did it, until I did a transaction or two. And it's more of like a lifestyle thing that I've put together. Like resonate so much with certain lifestyles that I find so much passion in serving those clients because I can connect. And that's something that I have learned over time. Like the investment space, like cool, I learned it, and I'll still serve those clients, but like land and ranch and like the lifestyle of living on land and this and that, like that is just like passion that I can get behind right there. And so anyways, I got into it because a few different deals that I did made me feel close to it. Like I had a friend who she wanted to purchase a few acres in Georgetown. It was like a farm style home. I helped her get into her first home. And then later on, she ended up purchasing a couple acres next to that. And then her sister wanted a couple acres next to that. So I did that. And it's kind of like a compound type thing, if you will. She got some cows, put it on there. Then her brother and sister-in-law wanted to have like 8 to 10 acres, lifestyle of just like grass, no neighbor type thing. So I helped them. And that started getting me up there in price point. We're talking, like 720,000 and then like 1.3 million. And then she was like, I, want to do 20 acres. We're going to do like an industrial development. So then I did my biggest deal that was 2.6 million. And that was just like all within that sphere. And then it was more clients of a couple acreage. They have a shop for their RV and, for their boat, or they want to, go down to the river and fish, or they want to shoot a bow on their property, like those kind of things. I'm like, yes, I resonate with this. And so that just kind of like opened up my eye. And then shortly after I started closing those deals, EXP had launched the land and ranch division. And I'm like, well, why the heck not? So I
Yeah.
joined their call, and it like literally just all made sense. And again, just like showing up every day and being super interactive has gotten me into the place where I'm now a land and ranch ambassador. So I help try to, grow the division, serve obviously our agents that are coming, making sure that they have what they need to serve these buyers and sellers, right? And, also just making sure that if we are missing something or lacking something on the buyer side for resources or the listing side for resources, that we're coming up with those to serve that clientele. So it's been just amazing. Our community with Land and Ranch is just amazing. There's so many different niches, right? Like, residential and investments and then commercial and land and ranch. But then you take it further and you go into, okay, land and ranch. Like we're talking equine properties, we're talking cattle ranches, we're talking lifestyle, we're talking hunting properties. Like it's crazy. And there's so many different people in that community doing so many different things. And they're so willing to share and help one another grow. And again, just like our listing platform, when I go into a consultation with a client, I'm not going in and giving the presentation that I would for just a residential home. No, it's tailored to their property, right? And it usually wins them over. What we have done with this division has been something that has really stuck out with this clientele, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, I love that because you talk a lot about niches, and I think that's important too, especially in real estate. A lot of times people get into real estate and they think they want to do like everything, and they don't. I
Well,
hear people that are like, "Oh, I want to do residential and commercial," or "I want to do multiple different things." But there's so many transactions out there. It's like you can get very niche down, and typically those niches want to do more business with you because of how niched you are and how experienced you are in that as well too. So I love the fact that you're doing that and promoting that as well too. So I want to dig a little bit deeper into kind of your social media strategy though, because I know you talk about you get a lot of referrals off social media, posting 3 times a day. Do you have a specific strategy when it comes to posting social media? Like, do you post like so much content, like a so many personal content versus like business, or like what's your basic strategy when it comes to social media?
yeah, I wouldn't say like I post as much as I used to. Like I used to pump out two, three, videos or whatever a day. Now it's more like one or every other day. Like it's super intentional. Of course, the algorithms change, so I try to keep up with that. But I'm super active on my story. Like that's one thing that I'm always so active on. You'll like I will post at least a minimum of like 7 times a day on my story. I want people knowing what I'm doing, and I can see which people are actually watching and engaging and hearting them or asking me questions or whatever. And that's the thing, I want people to know who I am, like outside of real estate too, right? But also like how I do business with people. And so I'm always posting, my animals. I have 2 cats and a dog. I love plants, so I post that. Everyone knows if you go follow my page, I love green. Those are things that like you had to think of to yourself, like, what do you want it to be known for? And so if I were to ask anyone who watches my stuff, they're going to say, she loves her animals. She has cats and dogs. She loves green. She loves plants, like everything, right?
Right.
And that's something that resonates with other people, and they think, and it's just like top of mind. So like my strategy behind it is just making sure that like a minimum 7 posts per day. Sometimes it's 20, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, people. But it'll be, again, just real estate or personal. Yes, I post personal on my page. Like it's more of, I would say like post, like me and my husband or me and a friend or my family. And then like my reels and my carousels and stuff like that are more business, and I try to relate it to homes on land, Williamson County, because that's really where I'm trying to like focus my attention. It's just like Williamson County, and then obviously land and ranch, and so because again the algorithm, and it just depends on the algorithm, but it goes back to like not niching, right? Like trying to do so many things, it's hard to get recognized on these platforms, or for them to push out content when they can't relate you to something that's going to push out your content. And so that's why I really honed in on Williamson County and then homes on land.
Yeah, and I love the fact you talk about putting out a lot of your personal stuff as well too, because a lot of times I think agents are afraid to talk about themselves or talk about what's going on in their personal life. But obviously in real estate, we're in a relationship business, right? And so people have to understand who we are. And the great thing I love about social media is that you're attracting your tribe, so you're basically repelling people that aren't going to get along with you anyways. And people think they have to please everyone, but it's like, well, just be yourself, talk about who you are, and you're going to attract people that like you, and then it's easy sell. You don't have to worry about selling yourself to anyone. So I definitely love that. Just out of curiosity, I'm always curious, and I don't mean to put you on the spot with this, but if there's one, obviously you probably have a lot of friends that are real estate agents on social media as well too. If there's one mistake that you see people make when it comes to social media, what do you think is the biggest mistake you see agents make on social media?
I would say negativity about the business, honestly. Like I see so much negativity from agents. Like I like to sometimes post like stories of like, hey, this happened in this transaction thing, more for like just like knowledge or just like sharing, like on a deeper level of like, yeah, this happened, and it's all not all glitz and glam, but like trashing other agents on there, like that's not cool, or just like trying to really like I don't know, like a scarce mindset. I feel like you can kind of really, depending on what people post, you can really tell that they have a scarce mindset. And when people see that, like they don't want to work with you. And there's agents that I see that constantly do that. And I'm like, gosh, I hope I don't have to deal with them because, man. So I would just say, like, keep the negativity to obviously a minimum, and, you know, highlight the good things. I mean, you can obviously let them know about a situation. Like, I'm about to tell a story about one of my clients who he lost $180,000 on a deal. Like, again, it's not all glitz and glam, but that's a different negative, right? Like, that's more of like, a story going into the transaction versus, bashing something else or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's true because that's like a story about what's happening in real life, right? But like negativity you're talking about is probably like political or like talking poorly about real estate agents and stuff like that. And there's so much. I mean, at the end of the day, and we should all be trying to uplift each other, anyways. And most people think that by being a jerk, that people are gonna be attracted to that, but most people are not. People want to work with people that they enjoy being around. And if you're, I know myself, I have people I know that are always like talking negative. I'm like, okay, I don't maybe want to hang out with that person because it's just every time I do, it's just a pity fest, something like that. So, definitely love that. So, now I do want to talk a little about this because I know we obviously are partners over at the Wolfpack. We're both in the same organization over at EXP, which is the Wolfpack. I'm always kind of curious that, obviously you weren't always with the Wolfpack when you first got into real estate. You talk about being with a little bit smaller brokerage. What made you decide to join EXP and the Wolfpack when you did?
Yeah, kind of going back to my previous brokerage, there were things where I wanted to grow. I didn't know how I was going to, but I'm someone who like I try not to attract to shiny things, right? Like I really try to like find out like within myself like what I'm missing and so that I can make the best next decision. And so that was something where I just had to like find within myself like there were certain things that were just changing at brokerage and basically the last straw had kind of like broke and it was like I'm not getting any value. Like I know I need to make a switch. And there's two people who are my sponsors at, EXP that I was at with that previous brokerage that I looked up to, and they were great people, and they had left. And I stayed like probably another 8 months to a year, I was still with that brokerage whenever they had made that transition to EXP. And I just saw them like killing it. And of course, they're like, I kept in touch with them and they definitely wanted to have a conversation with me. And I'm like, I'm just not ready. And I told them, like, I don't want shiny object syndrome. Like, I want to identify what I need so that I make the best decision for my business. And, again, just a lot of things that they were offering, like that they post and then having that conversation, like it really just made sense. A lot of the tools that I was lacking that I needed to grow, essentially. And so yeah, I ended up joining and I like honestly, if I would have started in Wolfpack, I can't imagine what my business would be like now, because I'm going into my fourth year now. So
Mm,
like I couldn't imagine what it was, but I can't reminisce on that, right? Like I'm working with the time that I'm already here and this and that, but I think it's great. Like it is amazing the amount of tools. And it's actually like I tell people, it's overwhelming when you join because there's so much that we have, but it's literally amazing because then once you perfect those things or those niches or you learn Instagram and TikTok or whatever it is, right? Like how you're wanting to run your business, once you've executed and learned those things, you can add on something else and it's always there.
mm,
Like we just have a library of resources that are never ending and amazing partners across the world, people that are willing to help. Like I can't tell you the amount like in the Austin area, we have a WhatsApp group,
mm.
and so many people will be like, I'm going through this situation right now. I don't know what to do. How do I advise my client? My phone will literally buzz with like five people trying to call me to be like, okay, this is what you need to do, or this is my experience. Versus like, I couldn't get that at my previous brokerage, or it would take a while.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
I love that. I mean, collaboration is important and support too. I mean, even like, I always tell new agents, I'm like, the worst thing you want is to have a question like 8 o'clock at night because you're trying to write an offer and then no one to support you, no one to help you to answer that question. Now you're like, oh,
Right.
what do I do? So,
Yeah.
also kind of throw a curveball on that too. Always kind of curious. After you joined EXP, what is the biggest surprise that you got from joining EXP that you weren't expecting by joining EXP and joining the Wolfpack?
Yeah, I would say EXP alone. I was a little hesitant on like the EXP world part because I'm coming from a brokerage that like I saw the broker, like I could call him and I'd get a response. And going to a cloud-based brokerage, like that was my one of my reservations. And I remember asking that in my interview, like, how am I know that I'm gonna get a hold of somebody, right? And they explained EXP world. I'm like, okay, whatever, I guess I'll try it out whenever I get there. But like sometimes I'm in that broker room 4 times a week and I want to be answered. And so sometimes I'm waiting 2 minutes, sometimes I'm getting directly in line, sometimes I'm waiting 10 minutes, whatever. But like, I love that I can go through scenarios. And sometimes I go in there and I'm like, okay, broker, whichever broker I'm talking to, I'm like, I got 5 things for you today. They're all different scenarios. And they're like, okay, hit me with it. And they're just so supportive. And I love to, like, if they don't know too, they're going to go ask another broker or whatever. So they're just amazing. That was my biggest surprise. And I'm super thankful that everything worked out because you need to have a broker. Obviously, they can talk things through and make sure you're compliant, you're doing, best practices and everything. And then just Wolfpack, I would say the collaboration again, like the amount of people that are willing to help you, the amount of resources that we have, especially that Mike gives us. Oh my gosh, it's like there's so much. And that like that comes back to the overwhelming part is we have so much stuff, but it's there when you're ready to grow into it with your business.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of funny. Whenever I first joined and I went into the world as well too, I was like, "What is this, like a Sims thing here? Like, what am I in?" You
Yeah,
know?
I'm like, I'm not a game player. I don't do games and stuff like that. And that's what I thought. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be like a gaming person now, and I have no idea how to do this.
Well, and it's crazy because you can like talk directly to them. And at one point, I'm like, I hit I'm like, am I muted? Like, hello, can you hear me? I'm like, I don't even know. But it's like it's so like you mentioned, like every time I go in there, I'm like, man, the response is like
Yes.
super quick and they're very good. So. Now, if anyone wants to look at what partnering with Timberly looks like at EXP, or even just wants to learn a little bit more about land and ranch in the Austin, Texas area, what's the best way for someone to reach out to you for some support?
Yeah. I mean, they can text me, they can call me, they can go to my Instagram page and DM me. That's gonna be the best ways to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, just so you guys know, I will put Timberly's contact information down in the descriptions. So if you guys ever want to get a hold of her, look at what partner looks like. I'm also gonna go ahead and put a Zoom link, or sorry, Calendar link to my Zoom link below. So if you want to schedule a no hassle, consultation, see what partnering with us over at HP looks like, make sure that you let me know that you saw us on this video, so that way we can make sure that you're partnered with the right people. Obviously through co-sponsorship now, there's a lot of cool abilities to get both me and Timberly as far as helping you in your career. So Timberly, I definitely appreciate you hopping on today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Thanks.
Bye guys.